Not much of the European crisis has rubbed off on Australia's big banks, if NAB's profit results, the first of the big four, are any indication. A record net profit after tax of $5.2 billion, a 23.6% annual increase. And here's a statistic. NAB is fourth largest bank by capitalisation in Australia at around $55 billion. But compare that to Germany's top bank Deutsche, a mere $37 billion. Well, NAB's shares rose 2.1% in what was left of the afternoon trade, and earlier I spoke to Chief Executive Cameron Klein. Cameron Klein, welcome to the programme.
Thank you.
Record profits and a lot to do with your breakup campaign. You must feel pretty chuffed with such clear output.
Oh, look, I mean, it was obviously a pretty ambitious campaign, so we're pleased to see the results. But
a lot of the growth which contributed to that result, has been in new mortgage lending. Are you comfortable about the quality of those loans, given that we could this time next year be in a global recession?
Oh, look, we are. In fact, we did show today, in fact, that the mortgage we've been writing in the last 2 years are actually of a higher quality than the mortgage we were writing 4 or 5 years ago. Now, obviously, time will show that, but they are seasoning, if you like, far better than some of our historical mortgages. So we're quite comfortable with the quality.
Managing risk is obviously central to bank business. I want to ask you about Europe and your views of the banks in Europe that have lent to Greece, some of whom are being asked for an up to, 70% haircut now. If you, as a banker, make a wrong call in lending, do you think you should have to suck it up and take those haircuts, or do you think that the taxpayer should pay for it?
Well, I think they seem to be landing maybe on a consensus that the cut will be around 50%. So, look, I think, you've got to look at this on a systemic basis. I think the reality is that we need a functioning financial system. If there are recapitalisations required, then that's going to be probably an impost on the European taxpayer. But what's critical is...
But do you think, say, 50% is fair cop?
Well, what was inevitable was there's going to have to be a haircut. I mean, so I think you just got to get one that probably recognises that the banks have to, deal with some of that themselves. But there's going to have to be some recapitalisation. To what degree can the taxpayers in Europe support that?
You're expecting a Melbourne Cup interest rate cut, but you don't necessarily feel that will help consumer confidence?
Oh, well, I think it won't hurt by any means, but I think we're saying the more stimulatory impact will come from global stability. I think interest rates are actually at historic lows. We're not seeing a lot of our business customers be reluctant to invest because of interest rates. They're more reluctant to invest because of global instability. So an interest rate cut on Melbourne Cup Day will obviously have a stimulatory effect. We just feel that confidence will be more impacted by a prolonged period of stability globally.
You're going back to the market soon. What do you think the impact of the euro crisis is going to have on the cost of your funding?
Look, we expect it probably to be elevated, but if the deals they're talking about in the last few hours do show some signs of being implementable, stable and not sort of subject to another bout of revision, then that will obviously help funding costs. But I think, the reality is that all of the banks are dealing with significant imposts from regulation. That regulation will cost us because we're going to have to term our funding out. We're going to have to hold more capital and more liquidity. So the reality is that the credit costs are likely to increase.
Well, Mike Smith, obviously this week ANZ's Mike Smith was saying that European bank regulation could have a choking effect on global recovery. The regulation you're talking about here, things like the cost of living wills, cost of capital generally, will affect credit. To what extent will that be passed through to the consumer?
Well, it's unclear. I mean, there's many moving parts in that, the degree to which the competitive environment plays out, how that cost translates. But the reality is, and Mike Smith is right, I mean, the cost of regulation can impact the flow and the availability of credit and the cost of credit, and that can have a negative impact on growth.
The UK has clearly been a frustration for you. You reportedly turned down an offer for your two bank businesses, Yorkshire and Clydesdale. You pulled back, though, from buying Lloyds branches which were on the block. Do you not need to either get in more or get out?
Look, I mean, I think there's been extraordinary amount of speculation, but I think you look at what we said, going back 3 years ago. We said quite clearly our strategy was to grow the business organically. We thought an organic strategy would deliver improving returns, and you see that today. Profit is up significantly from last year. Now, it's still well below the returns we'd like.
But are you committed to Britain? Because you've recently been downgraded, Yorkshire and Clydesdale have been downgraded by Moody's because they're not seeing these banks as long-term holds for you.
Well, that's a disappointing downgrade because it was only really based on speculation. Had that downgrade occurred when we made our initial comments in March 2009, it would be more logical. But we've made it quite clear. We're committed to organic growth. Profits will improve, and we've seen that this year. We've indicated, yes, clearly, if opportunities emerge to strengthen our position through acquisition, or alternatively, if we receive an attractive offer for the business, of course we consider that in the interest of our shareholders, but we're not engaging in fire sales, nor are we doing silly acquisitions just to say we've got scale. Now, there's been a lot of activity generated by Banking Commission reports, and inevitably we get linked to it, but that's much more about speculation. I'd look at our track record of just solid delivery.
Oh, we'll go on speculating. Cameron Klein, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.